sounds so fucked up. It sounds so fucking crazy. So awkward. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So as you can see, I'm in a different location. I'm actually in my sister's room today, and that's just because my sister had her prom today, so I couldn't really be bothered to move my ring light out of her room. It would literally be like a 2-second job, but I couldn't be arsed, so this is what I'm putting up with today. But welcome back to another Mental Health Mondays 2. Today I am going to be doing the story time of the time that I had a bit of a psychotic episode, a psychotic episode in hospital, and I actually rang my manager, which is really awkward because I still work at the place that my manager at the time was from, so okay, yeah, awkward. I mean, he's never made it awkward, like, disclaimer, this guy is like, he was one of my faves, he never made it awkward, but it is just a bit awkward, isn't it? Just a bit. So if you are new here, then I will give you just a bit of background around what was going on. To be honest, even if you weren't new here, you probably don't know this either, because I never really talk about this kind of time when I was ill. Like, I talk about being in hospital, but every time I talk about being in hospital, I'm never really referring to this time in hospital, because this time was just a bit like don't want to talk about it, don't want to think about it. That's why I put off doing this video. No, that's a lie, I haven't put it off, I just haven't wanted to, I think. I don't know. I was delusional. I think that's the only way to describe my being at this time in my life. Just a bit fucking delusional, bit nuts, just a bit nuts, because I like, what I'm about to tell you I thought was very real. Yeah, okay. So I was 18 years old, 18, 19, I was 18 years old. It was in January 2017, so a long time ago now. And it was my last ever admission into hospital, so I haven't had one since. This admission didn't actually start off with me being admitted for psychosis or whatever this kind of little blip thing was. And just a disclaimer, I don't have schizophrenia or, you know, anything like that. I don't even have a psychotic disorder. The psychotic episode has kind of been put down to stress, and it is common, well, not common, but it goes with the diagnosis that I already have, so it's not like I hear these voices every day and have to live with it. Luckily I don't, and it was a stressful time, and that's why that happened. Yeah. I was admitted due to a suicide attempt, and then say like quite quickly within that admission things kind of progressed into whatever you want to call it, really. So during this time I had heard voices which I had heard before, and I never actually never told anyone, because it seemed to be like when I was stressed about exams, that's when the onset came on. And at first it's really weird, I didn't even know they were like voices in my head. Like, I thought that, like, I don't know how to describe it, like I heard them, but it kept happening like at night time, or like when I was walking down the streets with earphones in, and I could hear people talking about me, and it wasn't like they were talking to me, it was like I heard a conversation going on. I don't really know, I'm not going to go too much into that, but yeah, I'd heard voices before basically, and I spent a long time trying to, like, I literally remember sitting in my room for ages and trying to piece together like what the fuck was going on, because I didn't really understand it, but also I wanted to figure it out because I wasn't sure if it was what I thought it was. And during the long period I spent in and out of hospital, they were getting progressively worse. And beforehand, they never really told me to like self-harm or anything like that. It was really weird. They would kind of talk about what I was doing. I don't know. This makes me sound really weird, but that's what kind of happened. I went from 3 hospitals during this time. So I went from the, oh, what do they call it? Acute ward, which everyone kind of gets placed on, to a PQ, which is psychiatric intensive care. So this is kind of more like, I really wasn't very well at that point. And then I went back to the same hospital but a different ward after that. So that spanned within like 2.5 months. So I don't know how long this lasted for. And I'm really sorry if this is quite jumbled up because it's, I don't know, it's hard to talk about, but it's also like hard to coherently remember. Do you ever get it when you have like a dream and it all makes sense in your head until you try and like verbalize it and it's like just sounds so stupid and weird? That's how I literally feel right now. So I was in this admission and it was, oh my god, it sounds so weird to say out loud because I don't really talk about it to anyone. But basically, like I said, I've been hearing these voices and they've been getting stronger and louder. Before, sometimes they could be quite muffled or quite calm, and they were getting more like aggressive. And they weren't talking to me and talking about being a queen, and talking about this person being a queen. And I was getting very confused because normally I would hear them talking about me. They never really spoke about anyone else. So I can't give you timestamps about when this was, but I remember being in the lounge. So in like, we had like a female lounge and a lounge in the hospital that I was in. And I remember being in the normal lounge and just coming in, and I was on level 3 at this point, I'm pretty sure, because I was in my RIP proofs. I had a lot of questions in my mental health story time thing, whatever, the big video, I don't know how to describe it, about what RIP proofs were, and they're basically clothes that you can't rip. So I was in them and they were ugly, like they were royal blue, which I mean adds to the story, quilted, and they were just so ugly, like so ugly. I walked in and this woman was watching, I literally remember, I don't know what it was called, I think it was like on BBC Two, and it was a programme about the Queen and like the Queen's food or something along those lines. You know the shows where there's like a presenter or whatever and they go around like Buckingham Palace and like they just make shit shows about the Queen, basically. It was one of them. And this was obviously going on at the same time as me being very confused about what I was hearing about a queen and all of this kind of stuff. So I was kind of like fixated on it. And guys, I literally remember, and this is going to make me sound so mental, but I remember sitting there and watching the TV and this guy was, it was so weird. Okay, so it was like, the only way I can describe it is that he was talking to me, but it wasn't like he was talking to me like I'm talking to you. It was like, I could, you know, and in hindsight now, as a rational person, I know that this wasn't happening, but in my memory it was. So it was like every time he mentioned the Queen or like Queen Elizabeth, he would like roll his eyes or make like a ha ha and then look at the camera, and I knew that he was talking to me and saying like, I'm kind of mocking Queen Elizabeth because you're the Queen. And I just remember being so fixated and thinking, oh my god, like this guy's talking to me, like he's telling me I'm the Queen, like everything he's doing is signalling to me that I'm the Queen. I remember one time like he pointed at the camera, and obviously presenters do this all the time, but he pointed at the camera and I was like, and I remember just knowing that I was the queen. And weirdly enough, I'm a very emotional person, but I don't remember having like any kind of emotion or like excitement about this. I just knew that it was true. Like, I knew that he was telling me, and I knew that everything, it was weird, like I had a kind of epiphany that everything now made sense, and like I wasn't who I thought I was. Like, I was the queen, like I was important. And this was the first step to it getting really like cemented in my brain. Obviously the voices thing kind of set it all off, and then this, but after that, like, everything seemed to be a signal. And I don't think I knew that I was in a psychiatric hospital, because I kept saying to like the staff, and I've been told this because obviously word gets around, but I kept saying like, oh, I can't go outside. And they'd be like, why? And I'd be like, because the paparazzi and like shit like this. And then I remember one time, and I remember I used to like, everything was telling me that I was a queen. So like I'd pour the sugar in my tea and I'd hear it like whispering like, queen, 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 queen. Oh my god. Embarrassing. But I did, and like little things like that, like I just remember everything was a sign to me that I was one. Yeah. So obviously this is all the background, but I've never really spoke about this before. So leading on from this, I subsequently then thought that if I was the queen, that my parents weren't my parents. Because like, I remember people say like, well, if you're the queen, what are you the queen of? And I'd be like, bitch, I'm just the queen. Like, they don't tell you what you're the queen of, they just tell you you're the queen. And yeah, so I thought that my parents weren't my parents. So yeah, I thought my parents weren't my parents. I thought that people, I was like fixated on the idea that people were able to put things into my head and take things away. So I thought that people were able, so like the staff mainly and other patients, I thought they were trying to confuse me by saying, by putting memories of like my family into my head as like false memories, and then taking my real childhood away of being the queen and known as the queen. I basically thought I was in like, not like, I didn't think I'd been kidnapped because I didn't feel in danger. Like, I had no embarrassment, no emotions or anything. I don't remember experiencing them. I just remember knowing that these people were doing these things to me. And then subsequently, I remember my named nurse, I can't remember what she was called, but she came in and she kind of started talking about what I now know to be like symptoms of parts of psychosis. And I remember she listed off a few that she had, like, obviously that had been noted down, and I just like burst out laughing to her, and I thought she was hilarious. Like, she was trying to tell me that I was experiencing something that wasn't real, but just like laughing at in her face like so harshly, and being like, well, everything you're describing is because you are able to read my thoughts and take things away, like you're the kind of dictator in this. Weird, but obviously at the time she was like just reading off some symptoms. I don't know which one she was reading, I can't really remember, but yeah. And I can't really describe to you how it felt, because obviously everyone around me was kind of telling me that, well, actually some of the staff like would tell me that I was the queen and kind of be like, okay, Marie, and like just kind of let me word vomit all over them, because I remember reading in one of my notes was that on certain days I would speak like really slurred, and then other days I would literally speak so fast. It's weird. And other times people would tell me that obviously like I wasn't the queen, like other patients and that. And I don't really know how to describe it. It's like Okay, it'd be like you putting a hat on in the morning, right? And then going around and saying like, oh, do you like my new hat? And literally everyone else saying to you, you don't have a hat on. And you being like, well, yes, I do, because I know I do. And everyone be like, well, you don't. Like, there's no hat on your head. And you'd be like, what? Like, that's how I felt. Like, I just felt like, what? Like, well, there obviously is. Like, I'm obviously a queen. But that's the only way I can kind of make you kind of see what I felt. I don't know. But I just remember thinking that people were so fucking stupid and like crazy. Like, but I wasn't like embarrassed at all because I thought I was right. I don't know. Even when ill, I still think I'm always right, basically. So this was at the start and I wasn't seeing anyone from the outside. So my mum and dad used to visit every single day, well, every single time I was in hospital, but during this span of time, I don't know how long it was, they didn't see me at all because the nurses were saying to them like, don't come because you'll probably be really upset. That's what my mum said anyway. But things kind of got worse and worse, and I didn't seem to be being touched to by meds. Like, meds didn't, they kept increasing everything, and it literally wasn't touching me at all. Like, I wasn't even tired. Like, I'd stay up all night. No longer were the voices kind of saying she's the queen. It was kind of like I overheard them discussing things about decapitating the queen. I sound so fucked up. I sound so fucking crazy. So awkward. Yeah. And then I also believe that other patients were in on it and everyone around me was in on it. Like, I was extremely paranoid about it because I thought everyone was trying to decapitate the queen, basically. So, yeah, basically. Anyway, now on to the actual bit. So, during this time, like I said, I wasn't getting any kind of visitors or anything, and I don't really know what I looked like to everyone else. I can imagine I looked a bit weird, just a bit, but then again, in a psych hospital I probably fitted right in. But I was off work at this time and my work have always been so incredible. It would actually be 2 years I've worked there on the 26th of June, so 4 days from now. I'd actually worked there 2 years, which is mad because it's just mad, isn't it? Like, I've had 3 admissions during that time, which have all added up to a lot of months. Yeah, I had a really good relationship with my manager, and during the time that I was ill, my dad kept in contact with like my work because it's not really like a physical illness where you kind of have a ETA of recovery, like 6 weeks you'll be back at work, 2 months you'll be back at work. Like, it didn't really work like that, so they kind of had to just play it by ear, really. Yeah, I was on level 3 at this time, which is when you get someone, when you have someone following you around the whole time, like 24 hours basically on watch. And I was on, I think it's level 4 where it's like arm's reach. I don't know. Anyway, so I had a member of staff with me the whole time, and I really do remember this bit. My phone ringing, and I remember seeing it was and thinking, oh, this is my test. I don't know why I thought that. I don't even know what that means, but I remember thinking, test. So I picked up the phone call, and the guy who was on level 3 with me was like, oh, who's on the phone? Because I wasn't allowed to call my mum and dad, I don't think, because I would make them upset, obviously. And I said, my manager, basically, and he was like, I think he was probably thinking like, is this another weird like queen conspiracy shit, or is this your actual work manager? Because he said to me like, are you sure you're allowed to take that? So I started speaking to him, and he was like, saying like, hi, how are you, and all of that, and I was like, yes, I'm like great, doing great. Obviously wasn't. And then he said like, how's your mum and dad? And I remember being like, they're not my mum and dad. And bearing in mind, he was probably like, what is going on? And then he was like, I remember being like, okay. And he didn't argue with that, obviously, because he probably didn't know what the fuck to say to me. And I was basically like to him, they're not my mum and dad, and like everyone in here is lying at my identity or something. And I don't think we spoke for much longer after, because another member of staff came in and took my phone off me. So he was obviously like, what the fuck, basically. And I was still batshit. So I went back to work in, I think, the April time. So I got a missing in January. So yeah, that sounds about right. Went back to work, and I was aware that we'd had this conversation, but now as like a mentally better, an unpsychotic. So my camera just died. Yeah, so anyway, I went back to work, and we actually never ever spoke about the situation, me and my manager. He was always just, can I say, so lovely and like non-judgmental of me. Like he could have, well, I think anyone would have thought that I was absolutely batshit, but I never felt judged or anything. I never thought it would ever be brought up until one day I was working in like helping out with the clothing section of where I work, and I was at the back, and the girls who I was working with had kind of found out about me being in hospital and that, because beforehand in my other admissions I never spoke to them about it, because I was just like, just want to avoid it. But I told them where I had been, because we had a better relationship than beforehand when I was quite new still. And one day, like, they must have been wanting to ask me for so long, one of them said to me like something about like adoption and me, and then they were like, and then all of them kind of looked at me and they were like, you're not adopted, are you, Marie? And I was like, no, like, what? Obviously not, like, no. And then they were like, I knew you weren't. And I was like, what are you on about? Like, they were all just kind of like awkwardly laughing, like, oh my god. And then they kind of got themselves in too deep, because at that point I was not letting this go. I was like, I want to know what you're on about. So they asked their manager, why is Marie off? And then this manager at the time had said to them, oh well, Marie's really poorly, that's why she's off, like didn't really go into much detail. And then and then this manager said, oh, and I feel so sorry for her because Marie's just found out she's adopted. And they were like, what? Like, Marie's adopted? Like, what? And then she said, well, my manager who I had rang had said to her that I was really upset because I just found out that I'd been adopted. So he basically thought that I was in a psychiatric hospital for my birthday, in a psychiatric hospital for like 3 months anyway, and also just found out that I was adopted at the age of 18. So he'd obviously expressed his concerns and was like, oh god, this is awful. So now, at the time, everyone thought that I was not only crazy, but also really just sad because I'd been adopted and like just found it out. What happened? It sounds a lot funnier when it happened. It's actually very awkward, and like I don't really talk about it anyway, so yeah. And I just want to say, this conversation with my work colleagues happened like a good few, like I'd say a strong 6 weeks into working, like returning to work. So they probably thought that I was like adopted and crazy for a long period of time. Always a happy ending. But anyway, I hope you liked this Mental Health Monday. If you did, you know what to do. I just want to also say thank you so much for 19,000. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. 19! That's like nearly 20. I can count really well. But like 20 is like you know how people have like 100,000 as their goal, but like 21, I don't know why, was like my ultimate goal ever, because I saw people with 21,000 subscribers and I was like, they've made it, like they've done it, like whatever it is, they've cracked it, whatever they want, they've got it. So the fact that we're on that way is just mad. Also let me know, I want to be doing potentially another true crime few videos. If you'd like that, let me know and I can do that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you have a good day, and I'm gonna love you and leave you because it's like 10:30 and I've got work tomorrow. But yeah, bye!